Hello everybody, welcome to day 3 of the One project. 1 week during lockdown where I am constructing and completing a whole journal. Parts 1 and parts 2 are already on the YouTube channel, so you may need to go and review those if you're finding this one first. So what I was thinking is, I've got my journal cover and I've got my journal pages, and one thing that people often forget is that sometimes we can arrive at our journals without any inspiration, and as with any journey, you kind of need to prepare for it. So this video is all about preparing for the journey, for the artistic journey that I'm going to take. I have here my golden paints and a rag and some water and my journal. And of course, we made this journal so that we could take all the pages out. I love using the golden fluid acrylics, I have to say. The fact that they are translucent in their colour means that I can put a load of colour onto these pages and I will still see those bits and pieces that we stuck together underneath. I'm showing you here a bottle of matte varnish, because once I've painted all of these, because I'm using acrylic paints, I am then going to cover them with a layer of matte varnish, just so that the surface becomes matte again, and then I can use pens and all sorts of things on it at a later date without problem. Acrylic paint obviously dries quite shiny, quite glossy, and it can be a pain sometimes to be able to find pens that will work on top of it. I know that many of you know exactly how to make a mess and some of you don't, and so I'm going to show you the different ways that I covered these pages with paint. You can see here that I always use a rag just to go over these particular paint surfaces. This is my first layer of paint and I want it to dry flat. I don't want any texture in it, and I also want it to be very thin because I'm going to be putting lots of other layers on top of it. It may even happen that at the end of these pieces you can't see any of this paint at all. So of course the simplest way to get paint onto your paper is just to smoosh it about a bit with a paintbrush. Add some water, that will mean that paint will go a little bit further. Be careful if you're using very cheap paints, because the more you extend that paint with water, the more it will lose its stability and may end up flaking at a later date. However, this is a junk journal. To be quite honest, if things are going to crack and peel off, it's just going to add to it. Another way that you can extend your paints and make them travel, and this is going to work really well for some of these pages where the background is still a little bit too chaotic for me, is to add some gesso into your paint. This will thicken up that paint really well. And actually, what I ended up doing is, because this paint was so thick and I didn't want to waste it, I took another one of my pages and smooshed it on top, and then you get a sort of speckled effect on the top page, which then I will add paint to. Now you're noticing that on all of these pages I am only using 2 colours of paint, and that's very intentional, because this paint that I'm putting down right now is less going to be part of my artwork and is more simply there as a preparation surface. So it's as an inspiration. I might look at it and think, oh yes, those colours are inspiring me to do this, or in fact the reverse. I might think, goodness me, I want to cover that up completely. So these paint layers, I guess it's that way of not arriving at a blank page ever. I like to think of this stage as planning my route or packing my suitcase. It's the getting ready, it's the not quite having left, and it's certainly not having arrived. So another glorious way to make some paint mess across your pages is to simply put some paint down and then sandwich the two pages together. And when you open it, you get this kind of speckled butterfly effect. And then I just paint all the way around that. None of these pages have bare spaces. On quite a few of the pages, I'm painting right across both sections, and that's because, of course, in my signatures, I have some middle pages, which gives me the opportunity to create a double spread of work. And on the other pages, I've just done single colours on some. What you're going to do is you're going to paint both sides of your pages so they are completely covered, and again, this takes a little bit of time, but it's quite fun, and because you are rubbing off that paint every single time, it dries quite quickly. So this is the final sort of way that I get my paint on the page, and you can see underneath I'm playing with that paper underneath, and of course I will save it and use it at a later date. The other way is to paint one colour in the middle, and then to paint another colour around the outside, and then to start blending that middle section outwards, and it sort of creates like a window effect. And I do that on several of them. Again, getting my rag when it's all the paint is down there and just buffing it off to make it nice and flat. So the next part about this preparation video is that I wanted to create a way of keeping these pages in order because for those of you who've been following from the beginning, this particular journal will contain a story, I guess, a narrative, an exploration of how I am coming into relationship with myself during this lockdown period. And I decided that what I could do is create a sort of page numbering system. And I really love having tabs at the side of my page. If I don't have ribbons all over the page, I certainly have tabs everywhere. And so what I do is I take out my bag of middle-sized bits and pieces. Those of you watching from the beginning will know that I sorted out all of my scrap papers. So I'm going to make some tabs, and these will stick on the side just like so. So this is a chance for me to do my most favourite thing, which is to take little tiny bits and pieces and layer them up in little tiny sections and then add a little bit of stitch. It's the one thing that I do all the time, and it drives me mad because my fingers get all glued up, and I often wonder, goodness, what is the point? But once it's all done, I think that you will agree with me that it adds something so beautiful to this journal. And after all, that's what we're doing at this stage. We are creating, we're putting in all the effort and the time, and the bit that gets a bit boring, I guess, which is the repetitiveness. We're putting that all in now. We're preparing for the journey. The packing is always the boring bit, isn't it? So here I go, taking little bits and pieces of scraps. This is why I don't throw anything away. And sticking them onto both sides of these tabs. Now I ended up using or creating 10 full A4 sheets, which obviously folded in half will give me 20 edges and a full 40 pages to work in. Phew, that's going to be fun. So I've now got 4 days left to do that many pages. It's going to be a laugh. So I'm going to make 20 tabs, one for the edge of each page, and obviously each page has 2 sides, but we're going to have 20 pages, and I just layer up with all of these bits and pieces. I just think these are so much fun when they're finally done. They really sort of come together like little pieces of patchwork. What I do then is I take some Distress Oxide, this is a peacock blue, and just go around the edge of each one just to define it, and then let that dry a little bit. And in the meantime, I'm going to punch out some holes using my 1/2 inch hole punch. And then on each of those holes I will stamp the numbers. Now you're going to see as I do these numbers, when I get to, I think it's number 14, of course it's the one that goes wrong, and I think, shall I redo it? And I don't, because actually it looks quite quirky and fun. Okay, so time to put all those numbers on. So the decision that I made was to have them so that where the tab is going side on, that number will be pointing in the right direction when I'm looking at it to open them up. I stick all the numbers on. You can see there I'm using a glue stick. That's a Tombow glue stick, which is my favourite. So So here's all my pages, and if you remember, I sprayed these with a matte varnish spray, just so that they had a matte finish to them, not a shiny finish, and then I can work on them with pen if I wish to. And what I'm doing is I'm arranging them here so that in the centre of each signatures, I'm going to have 4 signatures, that in the centre there is always a double spread of paint, and that the other pages are, you know, sort of all individual colours. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my little tabs, and I'm going to glue them in a descending order so that we have this kind of waterfall effect of numbers down the side. This is where the magic happens. It wouldn't be me if it didn't have a bit of stitch. So I just take a zigzag stitch all the way down through those numbers just to really secure them onto the side. Of course, there are loads of tassely bits of string, and most of that I will leave on, but I cut it a little bit shorter because I don't want this to look messy. I just want it to look a bit sort of ragged. And then I can put all my pages back into my front cover and sit back and see how beautiful it looks. It's so important to remember that a journal, you know, it is there to inspire you to be creative. And I think just taking this time today to get these pages painted, to put those little interesting tabs on the side of each one, this now looks like a journal that I'm ready to work in. And I am really excited to open this journal tomorrow and start playing on it. I will be taking the pages out to work in again, because then I can spill paint all over them and stick all over them, and without even worrying about damaging another page. I really hope you guys are also having a go at creating this journal. Do let me know in the comments if you do have a go. I absolutely love to hear how everybody else is doing. I look forward to showing you all where I get to tomorrow. I'll see you then.